So today we're going to be using dot plots, and we're actually going to take it a step further, and we're also going to be using what's called a frequency table. And we'll talk about kind of what a frequency table is in question 2. So the original question is going to read, 15 customers in a pizza shop were asked, how many toppings do you add to your cheese pizza? The responses are shown in the table below. So we have our list of numbers right below. The first question is going to say, well, could we use a dot plot to represent this data? And explain our reasoning. Now, when we're thinking of dot plots, we're kind of thinking of a number line. If we're dealing with a number line, we need numerical data. So this question is kind of asking, are we dealing with numerical data? Well, yes, we are dealing with numerical data. So we can use a dot plot to represent this data. So now in question 2, we're going to use a frequency table to kind of represent the information at the start of the problem. Now notice our table deals with two columns, number of toppings and the frequency. Now this word frequency really just means how many times does that number occur in our data set. So let's look at our first number of toppings, 0 toppings. So in this case, just cheese. Let's go back to our original data set. So up at the top, well, we have 0, 0, 0, and 0. How many times does it occur? Well, it occurs 4 times. What's the frequency? What's the number? In this case, it would be 4. Let's look at our next number of toppings. In this case, it's 1. And let's go back to our data set. We have 1, 1, 1, 1. And it occurs, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. What's the frequency? What's the number of times it occurs? In this case, it would be 5. Now we'll keep applying that same logic. So next we'll look at 2 toppings. Once again, we're going back to our original data set. It looks like 2 is going to occur 4 times. And last but not least, we'll look at 3 number of toppings. And 3 number of toppings, it looks like in our data set, occurs 1, 2 times. So that frequency, that number of times it occurs, in this case, would be 2. So we have our frequency table now. And the frequency table is helpful for many reasons. One reason, well, just looking at the frequency table, we can easily note the mode. What's the most occurring number? And using that frequency table, what's that highest frequency, that highest number? In this case, it's 1. It's also really helpful when we're making a dot plot. We can just look at this information. We know we're putting 4 dots on 0, 5 dots on 1, 4 dots on 2, and 2 dots on 3. Kind of helps us make that dot plot. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make that dot plot. So question 3 is going to read, use the tables from the warm-up to display the number of toppings as a dot plot. Label your drawing clearly. So let's just start off and let's just remember we want to label. So I'm just going to put below our label. And in this case, we're talking about number of toppings. And now let's plot. So we have a frequency of 4. That means I'm going to be using 4 dots to represent that number of toppings. In this case, 0. Next, we have frequency of 5 for 1 topping. So once again, we're going to be using 5 dots to represent the number of toppings. How about for 2 toppings? Once again, we're going to be using 4 dots. And for 3 toppings, we're going to be using 2 dots. So I'd like to just take it one step further and find the mean, median, and the mode. So let's find the mean, and we can use the dot plot or we can use our frequency table up top. And let's just look at the table and kind of see how it would work. We can kind of do it quickly, and we can say, well, for 0, that number of 0 pops up 4 times. 0 times 4 is 0, so when I add up those 4 zeros, I get a sum of 0. For 1, it pops up 5 times. 1 times 5 is 5. So I'm kind of just taking that number on the left and multiplying it to the number on the right. 2 times 4 is 8. There'd be 4 2's, and added up would be 8. And 3 times 2 is 6 plus 6. You can kind of do it quickly And there's 15 total students surveyed, so 15 total dots if you want to use your dots. If we simplify this, we'd end up with 19 over divided by 15. And if we divide that out, we'll have to round it off. But if you divide that out, we'd end up with about 1 point, if we go to the nearest tenth, 1.3. So a little over 1 is our mean here. So that's finding the mean. And then to find the median, probably would be helpful to use the dot plot here. You kind of get a better visual. So let's use the dot plot to find that median. So I'm kind of just going to start crossing out and to find that middle number, these dots, and it's kind of going to look like this. I'm going to kind of use this strategy. We're going to work our way towards the middle, so I'm going to cross one out on the left, one dot out on the right, one on the left, one 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 on the right, one on the left. In this case, it's the same one on the right, and we actually end up with our middle number. In this case, the median would be 1. So that's kind of one way to approach it, and you can always list them in order from least to greatest, and also kind of do it the way we've done in the past. Last but not least, we'll find the mode, and the frequency table is really helpful to find the mode. We know most occurring number is going to be 1. So we have a median of 1 and a mode of 1. So that's finding mean, median, and mode, and kind of using the frequency table and also the dot plot to kind of find the mean, median, and mode.